Hi, this is Jasmine, and this is my channel, Sober and Fabulous. I am making another video because I've heard a couple of great words of wisdom today that I want to share, and just how I integrated it into my healing process and what I'm doing in order to heal. So I have been talking a lot about my past relationship that ended a year ago and the journey that I've been on in healing myself and moving on from that relationship. It's been a process and it takes time. I forget sometimes to give myself that pause, that grace that I would give anyone else. I would give a complete stranger grace and allow them all the time in the world that they needed to get over love, or a lost love rather. And when it comes to myself though, I am suddenly, so harsh and unrealistic in that it takes time, and time is the ultimate healer of so many wounds. If I had said that to myself a year ago right now, because it would have just been a month, I think, from the end of that relationship, I would have wanted to probably smack myself, or even if someone had said that to me, it would have been hard to swallow. So having had a little over a year, and I don't even really consider it over a year because I did continue to stay in contact with this person, and it wasn't until January that I completely cut off contact. And I don't judge anyone who does it differently. This is about me and my process. I thought that I could handle being his friend, and I truly wanted to maintain that friendship because he was my best friend. I mean, he had been my best friend for a long time. But I realized that by holding on to my communication with him, I was holding on to hope, false hope, that he would suddenly come back to me and that he would change in the ways that I wanted him to change. It wasn't just, the relationship would start over. It would change in all the ways that I wanted him to change. And I can't make someone change. The only person I can change is myself. Big lesson that I've been working on for the past 2 years. And on Thursday, I'm going to be 2 years sober, which is truly amazing. Super proud of myself. Working on some other things, and that's quite all right. I think that's the beauty of life, that there are always things that we can work on, that we can better, that we can embrace. So what I heard today was, in order to forgive someone, what that allows you to do, it allows you to take the weeds out of your garden. And as soon as this was said to me, I knew that I needed to hear it, first of all. And I love planting flowers. I hate weeding. Haven't really met anyone that enjoys weeding. Maybe some do, because it is, helping the garden flourish. So I started thinking about that, and it just kind of sat with me for a while. And then I started to watch a show that involved a couple getting married, and I got really upset, and I allowed myself to cry. I cried tears that I had held inside for a very long time. I am realizing, and I talked to my therapist about this, that I sometimes stop myself from crying before I even realize that I'm doing that. And it's almost gotten to the point where I want to cry. I want to release those feelings. And I believe that crying is a very wonderful way of releasing anything that might be inside of you. It could be totally unrelated, but it can still come out through tears. And tears can be happy, they can be sad. I mean, they truly are incredible. And I've always been in awe of actors that can just flip a switch and cry. And, I know there are many different ways that they probably do that. So anyway, back to flourishing my garden and removing the weeds. So in order for me to remove the weeds, I need to forgive. And the first thing that I thought of was I need to forgive him. I have always been a letter writer. It's just something that I'm comfortable with. I enjoy writing. And I feel that letters are a casual way to kind of get my gears going in regards to writing. So I started a letter that I thought to myself, should I mail this? Should I not mail it? I just started this like 2 hours ago, so it's Sunday. I haven't mailed it. And I now realize that I'm not going to mail it. This is a letter that I'm probably going to burn in a fire tonight once the sun goes down. And I've done this since aftercare. I don't know. See, I went to aftercare in August of 2022. So probably September, late September, early October, we would do group sessions. And then we had a group session with our therapist. She would come to our house. And the whole group session was, we were split into 2 smaller groups. There was maybe like 7 of us. We all drew a picture or we wrote things, and she had told us in advance what we were going to be doing, that we were going to be burning things in a fire. So if we had old journal entries, old letters, something that reminded us that could be burned, to bring it. And we each had a turn to talk about what we were burning. We got to put it into the fire. We also started the fire, which is a part of the whole process. And then we watched it burn up into flames, and it was very cleansing and very therapeutic. And I've done this sometime. It's been a couple months since I've written a letter to my ex and then realized I did not need to send it, and I burned it. And I think I did it I know I did it in relation to something else. Obviously it worked so I can't remember who I wrote the letter to. So I let that shit go. So as I'm writing this letter, I start out thinking that I'm going to send it to him. So I'm a bit reserved in my feelings and my, my word usage and being friendly or being clever. I feel like I do put on a certain persona, I guess you could say, when I want someone to think that I'm intelligent or that I'm, like I said, clever. So the beginning of the letter starts that way. And then as I started to write what I'm talking about right now, that in order to move on, in order to flourish, in order to feel better about myself, I need to forgive you, and I need to let go of this grudge, because that's ultimately what it has become. Me holding on to the sadness, the anger, the disappointment, the frustration. It's all just become a grudge now, and grudges are ugly. They're just not worth holding on to. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be bitter. And it's so amazing how easy negative behavior, negative thoughts can manipulate and like even fill into like this sense of comfort. I realized that with, throughout my life, that holding a grudge, I would think of it as like, well, these are my feelings. I validate these feelings because someone hurt me. And how can I just, release them? And then suddenly it's like they didn't hurt me. And that's not the case, because by me holding on to these feelings of hurt and anger and what have you, I'm hurting myself. I'm not hurting that person, and I don't even want to hurt that person. But if there was hurt to be delved out, I would obviously prefer it to be them rather than me. I'm being honest. And all I'm doing is hurting myself. And I'm not flourishing. I'm not growing in that part of my life. And I realized that I can be flourishing and growing in other parts of my life and stagnant. And in this part, because I've been holding on to a grudge. And so as I'm writing, I then realize, like, I'm not mailing this letter. I'm going to burn this sucker. So then my true feelings came out, and I realized I'm a lot angrier than I thought I was, or that I was letting on. And that's okay, but I'm going to release them. And I also realize that this is a daily exercise that I'm going to have to do until I wake up weeks from now, days from now, months from now, who knows how long it's going to take. But I wake up and I don't have to remind myself to forgive that person in order to weed my garden. But I love when like sayings like this come into my life. And I could have heard this saying years ago. I can't say to myself, like, this is the first time I've ever heard this. It just makes sense. Maybe it is the first time that I actually listened to somebody saying it, though. So as I continued to write this letter, I started to write, all the wonderful things that there are about me. That I am an amazing, beautiful woman, and that I have integrity. And as I'm writing the word integrity, I couldn't remember if it was a D or a T before the Y. So I looked it up, and it's a T. And then I was looking at the word integrity, and I see the word grit in it. And I like the word grit. And I thought to myself, I have grit. And I didn't think of like gritty in a sense of like coarse sand. I'm thinking of like having courage, having resolve, and I want that in a partner. I want someone that's gritty in a sense of being courageous and doing things because they know it's right and that it feels good to help other people and to be a good person. I want someone that has integrity, that is honest just because they want to be honest. That it comes down to that, like what they do when no one's watching. That integrity has been such a big word and a big part of who I am now. And I knew the word before, but I never paid attention to what it was. And I thought, before I got sober, I really, truly thought I was living an honest life to a degree. Because I've always been told, and I know people mean this as a compliment, and I'm really trying to take people's words as compliments rather than like dissect them and be like, oh, they were, trying to insult me. Like, who cares what other people think? But I've been told all my life that what you see is what you get. And I don't hide behind a mask. I don't wear makeup. And I'm not saying that like people that wear makeup are hiding behind it. And I feel like when people said that about me, what you see is what you get, I could take that in many different ways. But I always took it as like, here I am. What you see is what you get. And so, having heard that multiple times, that people thought that about me, I felt in a way that I was, had integrity, that I was an open book. And there's a difference between being an open book and having integrity. And that is, do we ever truly know what people are thinking? No, we do not, because those thoughts are inside my head. I can sit here and I can talk to you for hours. I can blow smoke up your ass. I can blow smoke up my own ass. But I don't want to do that anymore because A, it is exhausting. And B, I truly believe that takes more effort than just being honest and not talking nearly as much all the time. Just being silent, listening. And I love to talk. Don't get me wrong. I can talk about a lot of things. And this is therapeutic for me. This is why I do it. And I do it when when something comes to me today, like this message, forgiveness, forgiving someone allows me to weed my garden. It allows me to stop letting weeds choke my garden. It allows me to free myself of grudges, of unhappy, yucky feelings. And there's also a part of the end of a relationship is going through the process, the phases of grief. Even like me becoming sober and me turning my life in a different direction. I had to grieve that for a while because I really thought I was missing out, like I was missing out at the party. And I am. In fact, I still am. But I'm much happier in this life now, not being at the party, not being the girl that everybody knows and everybody likes, who's completely miserable inside and is losing her mind. Don't miss those days whatsoever. I don't miss going out. I don't miss partying. I don't miss being hungover ever. Like, never. I was actually talking to my roommate about that the other day. I really like where I am now. I like that when I have these moments of sadness and anger and discomfort, that I'm able to work through it. And again, I realize that it's not just one and done. It's not like one day I'm like, oh, I realize I need to forgive in order to weed my garden. This is going to be a continual process. I will work on this every day. And now that I've heard this beautiful message in such a great metaphoric expression, that's going to stick with me too, because I love flowers and I love this time of year when everything's flourishing. And I have plants inside, we have plants outside. It's just, everything's green outside. I love living in an area like I do where I have all 4 seasons. And I can see what the point of this, beautiful saying is. Because weeds do choke a garden. And there are destructive things that can happen within nature to cleanse. Fire is a big one. And, a lot of times people are like, oh, forest fires are bad. Now, man-made forest fires, completely bad. But fires happen within forests to clear out all the brush that's choking the trees and not letting them flourish and grow taller in, all their extreme beauty. And I feel like that's a part of why I want to have a fire and burn this letter. And I think it's going to play out in other parts of my life. Actually, I know it is, the parts that I need to forgive, because I also need to forgive myself. I've been working on that one for a while. And that it's okay to hold on to feelings. It's okay to hold on to grudges. And even if it took me even longer to get to this point where I am today, and be able to sit here and tell you that I'm ready to let go, that I'm ready to work on letting go, I guess I should say, rather say that. That's okay. And that's also giving myself grace and allowing myself time to heal. Going back to being 2 years sober, when I went into rehab, it was a lot. It was heavy. And at the same time, what I was dealing with, being an addict and a drunk and all of my mental health struggling, that was way heavier than what I dealt with in rehab. But that, suddenly being around so many different people, and that helped because it was a distraction, but it was also sometimes so overwhelming. Feeling that much energy around me, and people are in different states of healing. But it definitely opened my eyes to, hey, the world does not revolve around me. And we were all there for a common goal. We're all of our priorities in the same, situation. Maybe not. But I feel like when I was in rehab, I know they talked about that it could take up to 2 years, 2 to 4 years, I think they said, to really get the chemical balance back in my body, to get where I'm not thinking about using, where, physical, mental, spiritual, all these things, it could take up to 2 years. They said at least a minimum of 2 years. So now here I am 2 years later. And what's interesting, and the point of this is that when I was being told this, I was not having a patient moment with myself. And I was like, man, I cannot wait to be 2 years sober and be past that. And I knew that I had to go through the 2 years, but there was just something in my mind where I was like really looking forward to that time. And I'm very happy to be here. I'm not gonna lie. It's a good place to be. I no longer have a desire to drink at all, and I don't have a desire to use drugs. It's an amazing feeling because there was once a point in my life where I was obsessive over both. And that also encourages me, though, to know that I can make other changes in my life. I can forgive the people that have hurt me. I can forgive myself. I can be exactly who I want to be. I can change myself. That's what it shows me, that I can do this. I am quite capable of doing it. And it takes time and it takes effort, but I'm willing to do it. And I hope that by me sharing how I feel, how I interpret things, is able to reach one person. If it reaches one person, that's amazing. And if what I say inspires you to make a change in your life, I think that's truly amazing. Or what I say inspires you to just embrace who you are and love who you are, I think that's amazing. I am so grateful to live the life that I live, and that I don't know of anyone in my family, and I'm talking about the ones that I'm in touch with, but no one has made me feel ashamed for going into rehab, for admitting that I'm an addict. And I know that people do look at it oddly, or, it doesn't get the, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't get the reaction that I'm always looking for, always expecting. And I don't always I don't walk into a room full of strangers like, hey, I'm an addict, unless I'm at a meeting. But if I feel comfortable talking to people about it, I have no problem talking about it. I think it's healthy to talk about it. I think it's healthy to discuss mental health, healthy to discuss addiction. I think that's how we help ourselves and help those in need, and I am one of those in need, get better and continue to grow and continue to heal. And, there's so much goodness in our lives, and there's sadness, there's bad, there's evil. And it's very frustrating for me because I don't understand the inflicting of evil on others. I just don't. I have the ability to look at other insights, to look at other perspectives. And I can to a degree, but I cannot. I just get to a point where I cannot. And when it comes to physically hurting someone, when it comes to emotionally hurting someone, when it comes to physically hurting animals, even plants, I can't wrap my head around it, and I don't want to be honest with you. I don't want to understand that. I don't see the benefit of it. I don't see how that helps in any way, causing more harm. It hurts me. It hurts me deep inside. And I can't let myself get overwhelmed with that, though, because there is so much beauty in this world. And there's amazing and wonderful people in this world. And I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of them. But I've also known some very bad people. And I've made bad decisions in my life. And that's what I have to remember also, that do I want to be defined by the bad decisions that I've made in my life? I certainly don't. So I have to, there's a fine line there in judging people and being given information about someone and just making a judgment based on that. And again, we don't ever really know each other because we have our thoughts. I am my own person, and I know myself. That's all I know. And I know that I can change myself. I know that I love myself. I know that I respect myself. And I'm just really happy to be here where I am right now. And I really just wanted to share that little tidbit about unchoking your garden, about weeding your garden, and how that will help you flourish and grow. And I'm talking about myself. I plan on forgiving. And there's one situation where I can forgive very, I don't want to say easily. That's not it by any means. It's the immediate. It's what's happening right now. And I want to deal with that in order to move on to some other stuff. So I plan on working on forgiving that person. And I know that it's going to help me. I know that even if I said that to that person, like if they suddenly appeared here in front of me, it may not have any impact on them, that person whatsoever. And that doesn't matter. This is about me. It's about how I feel. So I'm going to sign off. And I just want to say thank you for listening to me. And if you are in need of help when it comes to addiction, please go to a meeting. Please reach out to someone that you trust. And I suggest meetings because I feel like you're going to meet people that are going through something similar that you have, and they will be able to help you get help immediately. And there are amazing apps that can find a meeting for you so easily. And if you feel like you need to talk to someone, if you're struggling with your mental health, first of all, do not be ashamed. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's quite all right. I think more of a struggle than we admit. I struggle every day, but I also work on bettering myself every day. That's a great feeling. And a lot of that comes from help from my therapist. And I will tell you right now, I'm moving on to a new therapist, which I think is totally awesome and great to do. So I've been with my current therapist since September of last year. She and I we started this conversation a couple of months ago where I started to ask about different types of therapy when it comes to brain spotting, when it comes to EMDR. She and I practice art. It's, oh gosh, what's it stand for? Acute resolution therapy, I think. Similar eye movement, all three, art, brain spotting, EMDR. Brain spotting and art are derived from EMDR, which has to do with eye movement and desensitizing or changing how you feel towards a memory. So she doesn't practice the other two. And she told me to do research. And if I found another therapist, she totally understands that it's time for me to move on. If I ever need to talk to her, reach out to her, she'll always be there for me. That's how I left it with the previous therapist. So what I did, I got on Google, first of all, but I went to psychologytoday.com and they have amazing filters. I was very specific about what I wanted in a therapist and in regards to what they, what they offer, what they bring to the table. So my new therapist and I will have our first session next week. And she told me that we had a conversation, we talked on the phone, that, these things that I want to get into, like, she's got to get to know me. It will take time. It could take 6 months. It could take a year before we get there. That's okay, because there's a goal that I'm going towards, and that's changing how I react to pretty much everything. I want to make sure that I'm not reacting in ways from past traumas. So I think it's healthy to have these kind of conversations with your therapist. Just because you're with one therapist does not mean that you need to stay with them forever. If you need a therapist, there are so many options online now, and that's where I do my therapy. It's truly incredible. So I encourage you to reach out and talk to someone. I hope you have a wonderful day, and don't forget to flourish your garden. Bye.